Hello everyone, what's up and welcome back to another video. Today I will be doing all the books that I read in October. I really felt like it was a very long month for me. I don't know if anybody else felt like that. Before we get started, please remember to like and subscribe. Comment down below how many books you read or which book was your favorite. And without any further ado, let's just jump right into the video. So before we delve into the books that I read, I'm just quickly, as usual, going to look at some stats. So I read a total of 7 books. I always said 700 books, and a total of 3,248 pages. Most of my genres were mysterious, dark, tense, adventurous, and lighthearted. The pace of which I normally read is medium, but there were a few slow and I think one fast book or 2 fast books. I'm not quite sure. For the page number, the majority of the books were between 300 to 499 pages, and I think 2 books were over 500 pages. My genres merely consisted of thriller, romance, young adult, mystery, fantasy, classics, LGBTQI+, horror, historical, and contemporary. Anyway, most of the books I read in print, but there were 2 that I read in digital. I'm slowly moving more towards digital because, I don't know, some papers just doesn't work for me anymore. So I tend to find the Kindle version of the book, usually on Amazon, because I can't page through books anymore, guys. So even though some of the stats will show that I might have read it physically, there's a chance that I read it digitally. Some tidbit of information for you there. Then my average rating is 4.29. 4 books I gave 4 stars, 2 books I gave 4.5 stars, and then 1 book I gave 5 stars. And leading with that, we are diving into the books that I read. Naturally, I read these books for Spookoplathon or Becca's Spookoplathon. If you want to go check out my TBR and whatnot, I'll link it up here. Or if you want to go see the reading vlogs, they will be linked down below. It was just all around good time. I really enjoyed it. And the first book I started with was Temptation Ridge by Robin Carr. This is the 6th book in the Virgin River series, and we follow Shelby McIntyre, who just stopped caring for her mother, who unfortunately passed away after suffering from ALS for a long time. She is just planning on enjoying her sabbatical year basically in Virgin River before she goes into nursing. And while she's in Virgin River, she meets Luke Ryden, and they kind of have this meet cute in the beginning of the book, but they don't think a lot about each other. Luke thinks she is a lot younger than what she is, and eventually they fall in love, but Luke tells her that it can't be serious because all the relationships I've always had were, like a one-night stand type of thing. And he says he doesn't want to make it a one-night stand, but he also doesn't want to promise her a future because he feels like there's no future for her with him. I gave this book a 4 stars. I really enjoyed the journey that the 2 took in finding each other, falling in love with each other, and the 3rd act breakup was a miscommunication trope, so if you don't like those, I would not suggest reading this book. But it was done very elegantly. It was done very nicely, so you could understand each party's perspective in why they broke up, essentially. It was a fun read for me. I really enjoyed it. I look forward in reading more of Robin Carr's stories. It's a nice small town romance kind of book, and if you're looking for small town romance, I would highly suggest this book. Then the next book I read was Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and this follows a nameless girl, and she recites how she meets Maxim de Winter and how she falls in love with him, even though she's like this low-class girl. I think it's in the 1920s, around there. So she's very low-class, and Maxim falls in love with her, but he has some secrets of his own, of which is only revealed at the end. And she's also haunted by Maxim's previous wife. She unfortunately died in a boating accident, and Maxim refuses to talk about her. He's not allowed to talk about her at all, and obviously her name is Rebecca, so she's kind of haunting this nameless woman. We never know what her name is, but she has this constant desire to know what Rebecca did, how their life was. She wants to fit into the mold of who Rebecca was without actually knowing who she is. And then we also have this, I can't remember what her name is, but she's like the overseer, and she was in love with Rebecca. Just a quick pause. Yeah, I meant to say she loved Rebecca like a daughter. She didn't like this nameless person. She felt like she was taking over Manderley, which is the house that Rebecca and Maxim lived in before Rebecca's untimely death. And she's constantly trying to push this woman away. So I gave this book a 4 stars, merely because it was more leaning toward the gothic style than it was leaning towards the creepy style, if you understand what I mean. I thought this was going to be like a suspenseful horror, but Du Maurier is this person who plays a lot on gothic and the feel of gothicness. That sounds weird. I don't know how to say it. Like Mary Shelley is known for her sci-fi gothic stories, Du Maurier is more known for her ways in invoking the gothic feel in her novels. So it's not creepy, it's more like the aesthetic of creepiness or the aesthetic of gothicness in her stories. And I would say I really enjoyed this book. I did kind of expect the ending, but in the same time, I thought someone else was responsible for the incidents that happened in this house and around this house. And it was just a delightful read. It was a very fun classic to read. And yeah, if you're looking for something gothic, something exciting, I would definitely suggest it. I also watched the movie, and it is also a very interesting fun. It's kind of fun movie. It's not creepy at all. There are times where the nameless woman, she does weird stuff, and the caretaker of this whole thing, she says weird stuff, or she plays on this nameless woman's feelings that just raises red flags everywhere. But yeah, it was a fun read, a fun watch. I definitely would suggest this book. Then the next book I read was King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo, and this is the King of Scars duology. My friend and I have been slowly making our way through the Grishaverse series, and this month we are closing it off. But anyway, this book follows Prince, or King Nikolai, as everyone knows him now, and how he is still haunted by a monster inside of him. And even though we thought, it was the end of his darkness in Ruin and Rising, unfortunately, he's still plagued by this. And the fact that he's plagued by this shows more towards the rising of the Darkling's powers yet again. It's like he's not dead, even though he's not dead. And it's quite disturbing. The ending is quite disturbing. Then we also follow Zoya. I'm not going to pronounce her surname because I am going to butcher it. I think she's slowly starting to fall in love with King Nikolai, but because she is this person who pushes everyone away, she doesn't really want to delve into her feelings. So she's more of this hard-skinned general who tries to save Nikolai every time he turns into this monster. Her scars start to show, or her past starts to show, and you slowly start to learn her more and why she is the way she is. Her story is quite sad. And then we follow Nina, who is going on a journey back to Fjerda, where she is destined to do some things. I don't want to spoil it in case you haven't read the Six of Crows duology. So she's just on her mission to try and solve some things and put some things to rest. And this book was gripping from the first page to the last page. Although it wasn't my favorite, I gave it a 4 stars. I really enjoyed the storytelling. There's not much I can say about this book other than it was a very enjoyable read. The chapters were just a bit long. Like the first part in the book, the chapters were like each 20, 25, 30 pages. And yeah, it kind of drove us insane because it took us a while to get through this book. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the storytelling. I enjoyed Zoya and King Nikolai's banter. They have this amazing banter that always makes me laugh. And Nikolai has these sayings that are quite funny. So yeah, I really enjoy his character. Nina's character, on the other hand, I'm a bit flippy-floppy about it because there are some things she does that I'm just like, why didn't you think this through? But at the same time, I'm like, oh, I see what you did there. So I'm in a love-hate relationship with her right at this moment. Then the next book I read was Hollow by Karina Hull. And this book is basically, in short, a Sleepy Hollow romance retelling. Fantasy romance retelling. to delve deeper into the situation, we get Cat Van Tassel, and she is destined to marry Brom something. Brom Bones. How can I forget a surname like that? She is destined to marry Brom Bones since they both were born. He is 3 years older than her. So once Cat was born, her mother and his mother were like, you're destined to be together kind of thing. And when she's 15, Brom comes in and he's like, I did a bad thing. Take it with a grain of salt or do whatever you want to. And they do the devil's tango, and then Brom disappears. For like 4 years, he's nowhere to be found. And that kind of puts damper in Kat's mom's purpose to get her and Brom to be married. Words. So Kat's mom decides she's going to the Sleepy Hollow Institute, where they teach you stuff as a magical person, because I forgot to say Kat's a witch. So they teach you magical things and get you ready for your journey into witchyhood in the future as an adult. Unfortunately, when you leave the institute, you can't remember what happens, because it makes sense. Anyway, and there Kat meets Professor Ichabod Crane, and they slowly start to develop a relationship, and they fall in love. Kat explains to her mom that she doesn't remember anything in the institute except for the lessons Ichabod Crane gives them. And this concerns Kat's mom because it's weird. That's not supposed to happen. And even more weird things happen. Professor Crane is haunted by the previous professor whose job he took over, and it's all just a big mess. The Headless Huntsman comes back, and how the Headless Huntsman plays in this role is also very weird, but it's also very entertaining. I'm excited to see where Legend takes us. This is a duology. Legend has been released, so yeah, I might dive into that book maybe the end of this month or the beginning of next month, just to see where this whole duology takes us. But I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars because the descriptions of everything was just so good. The gothic elements in it, it gave spooky vibes and it gave Halloween vibes, like just full vibes all around. That's all it is. Then the next book I read was The Wayward Girls by Amanda Mason. And in this book, we first start off the story in 1976, where Bee and Lou, who are 2 of 5 siblings, I think I remember correctly, they stay with their mother in this rundown cottage, like in the middle of nowhere kind of thing. There's a village just a few kilometers away, but they're this weird outcast family that stays on this farm. And slowly but surely, Bee and Lou come to discover that the room basically that they stay in is haunted, and the whole house slowly starts to become haunted. And this whole issue is investigated by a paranormal society, but they never find out what happened in the end. And then we jump to the now, where one of the society's daughters is on a mission to solve what actually happened and who was actually haunting this whole house in the 1970s. It was a creepy book. It was a very weird book. Bee as a character, I don't know how to explain it to you, how she comes forth, but she gave me the creeps, okay? She enjoyed the fact that the house was haunted, like so much. She just enjoyed it. And that was creepy as hell. And then the society people as well, the way they have been involved in this was just also, it was entertaining to see, but it was also weird. And then when you jump to the now, Lou, who changed her name to Lucy, she doesn't want to talk really about the incident. And her mother, Kathy, is kind of like in the beginnings of amnesia. So she doesn't always remember what happened, but she doesn't also want to think back about the situation that happened because that upsets her. And I don't know, it was just such a weird book, but I really enjoyed it. It really gave me those creepy, haunted kind of house vibes in a subtle manner. There weren't parts where I felt like, oh, I'm creeped out or anything. I don't think I was creeped out in this book. It's more of the fact that this situation around everything, I was like, okay, maybe this is a bit creepy, but I can see where it might go. The ending was just, I did not expect that, which is a lot with most of these books, but really this ending just blew my mind. I knew something of that caliber happened, but I didn't think it was going to be personified like that. I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, and it was really a nice October read. Then the second last book I read was The Ravens by Cass Morgan and Danielle Page, and this was my favorite of October. I really, really, really love this book. This book is basically about a sorority evolved around witches, but nobody knows that they are witches except those in the sorority. And we get Vivi Devereaux. She doesn't know she's a witch, and her mom has hid it from her all her life. Her mom kept telling her she's special, but she chucked it up as every child's mother tells her she's special, so what do I know? And it turns out that she's a very powerful witch. And then we get Scarlet, whose name I've forgotten, Winters. She knows that she is a witch, and she is trying to become the sorority's president by next year. But she is kind of weighed down by her mom's expectations of her and her sister's lineage, basically, or success in what her sister was in the sorority, that it kind of weighs heavy on her that should she really be the president, or is this just something that her parents want? So it's that kind of battle inwardly for her. And then she has this outward battle where she has to fight with her past demons. Things happened 2 years ago in the sorority that resulted in one member of the witches, her magic to be locked, so she won't be able to practice magic at all. And now this woman is back, and she is trying to take revenge on Scarlet for what happened to this woman's best friend. And it's a big mystery around this whole thing. But the writing was so fun. I really enjoyed Scarlet and Vivi's character. They were just these two fun girls that, even though they hated each other in the beginning, they slowly start to form this sisterly bond that is just so cool, and I really enjoyed it. I love the witchy elements in this book as well. There were these explanations as to what kind of witch who was and what their powers were and how strong they were in these kind of powers. And the mystery involved in this whole thing, it was also something I didn't expect. I did think one of the girls were involved in this whole situation, but I was wrong. There was a red herring there, and I fell for it fair and square. And I can see why it was in the stack of Becca's favorite books. Then the last book I read was also the book that I regretted reading. And I don't know. I'm still haunted by this book. And it's Pretty Girls by Corinne Slaughter. Basically, in this book, Claire's sister disappeared 20 years ago without a trace. No one knows where she went. No one knows what happened to her. And they really can't find a trace of her. And now 20 years later, another girl around the same age as what Julia was also disappears. And the things that happened to this new girl kind of correlates with how Julia disappeared as well. So Claire starts investigating due to circumstances that happened in her life recently, and she comes across some weird things. I do mention them in the reading vlog that I did, but they were beyond weird. They were beyond disturbing, which leads me to my review for this book. This book has every trigger warning you can find. I do not read trigger warnings because most of the time I don't care about trigger warnings. The things that happen to these victims, I think it's the stuff of nightmares. Luckily, I didn't get any nightmares because the descriptions of their situation was also very weird. So I still don't know how I feel about this book. I'm on the edge of, should I eventually read another Corinne Slaughter book, or should I just be like, thanks, but no, this is never going to happen again. I do have a few of her books, but if each and every book reads like a true crime mystery, I don't think I will ever be able to sleep. This book highlights the dangers of being a woman in this world. Really, it does. And it upsets you in ways that you really can't explain. I don't know, it's just unsettling and unnerving. And like I said, I still don't know how I feel about this book. The writing was exceptional. I gave it a 4 stars because of the writing. It hooked me from start to finish. There's a lot of people that say the first 3/4 of the book is like very boring, but no. For me, every page had a reason to be there. The chapters were like 30 pages long, but they were 30 pages long for a reason. There was no way Corinne Slaughter could have broken down this chapter and make it like shorter chapters. It was just, So turns out I have a lot more to say about a book that is very gory and very ugh to me. But like I say, the writing was just exceptional. It's just the storytelling behind it was very bothersome for me. So yeah. That is all I have to say about this book. I will eventually figure that out. If I eventually feel like I want to pick up another book by her, I might. But other than that, I'm leaving those in the archives. Anyway, that is going to be it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you've read any of these books, if you read any of these books, please let me know. Just let me know what you thought of it. And I'll see you guys in a video next week.